on time.
Yeah, my wife has it 5 minutes ahead of time, and we're always late.
Oh, dear.
But, you know,
Yep. Let's go for it.
Well, welcome to the June 16th meeting of the Humboldt County Association of Governments. This Humboldt County Association of Government meetings will be held at the Eureka City Council chambers and both in person and telephonically through Zoom. And this meeting can be viewed through Access Humboldt's website, the Suddenlink channels 10, 11, or 12, and Access Humboldt's YouTube channel. There's a ribbon across the screen that will have information for how to log into the public comment. At this time, we call this meeting to order, and can we get a roll call?
Supervisor Wilson?
Here.
Mayor Jones?
Here.
Mayor Seaman?
Here.
Councilmember Avis?
Present.
Mayor Atkins Salazar?
Here.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson? Councilmember West?
Here.
Chair Mike Johnson?
Here.
PAC Member Arroyo?
Here.
PAC Member Allstrand?
Here.
And thank you. Our first item of business is to adjourn as the HCOG board and reconvene as the Policy Advisory Committee. And following that, we have a presentation from Caltrans Project Manager Jeff Pimentel with an update on the Eureka Arcata Corridor project.
It looks like he's just connecting to audio, so we could give him a minute to connect.
Okay. We could go to consent calendar and come back. So we will skip ahead to the consent calendar, and we have 4 items: AB 361 findings, approval of the meeting record for May 19th, approval of a funding agreement for Dial-A-Ride, and the fiscal year 21-22 RSTP policies and allocation. Does anybody wish to pull anything? Nothing. We'll entertain a motion.
I'll move consent.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. We get roll call.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Mayor Seaman?
Yes.
Councilmember Avis?
Aye.
Mayor Atkins Salazar?
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson?
yes.
Councilmember West?
Yes.
Chair Johnson?
Yes.
PAC Member Arroyo?
Yes.
PAC Member Allstrand?
Yes.
Okay. Is Project Manager Pimentel back online?
I am here.
All right.
Alrighty. So just wanted to give an update on the Eureka Arcata corridor project, specifically the Indianola undercrossing. We are getting much closer to delivery of what we're calling the repackage and re-advertise of the project, since bids were rejected last year. I know there was some risk with costs having increased, that we were potentially maybe going to have to go for a supplemental request and potentially be here this evening asking the board to take action to potentially approve additional RIP funding. But at this time, it does appear that our estimate is within a threshold, what we call our G12 allocation, which allows us to go a little bit over what we had allocated last time. And so if everything stays the same, which I expect it to based on checking in with the team, we should be able to move towards advertisement of the project without going for a supplemental request at this time. The risk remains extremely high that a supplemental request for additional funds would be needed based on the bids when those come in, since the trend has been definitely higher bids in light of a lot of the cost increases that have occurred. But this would allow us, I think this is the best case scenario right now, which will be able to go out and see what the market provides in terms of bids on the project. As I've explained to Beth as well, who's been involved in our meetings, I think maybe things tame a little bit, just, I don't know, with the different forces going on in the economy, interest rates rising. I think the hopeful thing for this project is that maybe cost increases tame, and maybe we see a little bit of that in the bids, but I don't know. It'll take a little bit of time to get to the point where the project is actually advertising to contractors. Our tentative target date for delivery of the project right now is July 8th. So we're closing in on about 3 weeks from being completely done with the plans. And then there would be about a 2-month process by which, I'm just actually looking at the date here. So we would likely be awarding sometime in September, in that range. And we're planning a 6-week advertisement for the project. So, and we'll just see what the bids come in at. But being that we're going to be utilizing most of the G12 capacity to be able to put this out to advertisement, it is highly likely, if not certain, that at some point during construction, if the bids do come in under the engineer's estimate and we're able to award, it is still highly likely, if not certain, that at some point during construction we'll likely need a supplemental funds request. And that really just plays into the duration of the project being a 3-year project. It is, one of the most complex projects that the district has delivered in the recently in the last few years. So for those reasons, I think the risk is high that we would need additional funds potentially in the future. But we've identified that risk. I think also Beth and I have made, I don't know that I'd call it a plea, but I think a great argument to our headquarters programming staff in terms of the difficult position that HCOG's in terms of the allocation and the funds that you guys get each RIP each cycle with RIP funding, and the amount of money that this project has taken over the years, that, we are trying to make the case that if there is ever a supplemental request that's needed, that the ITIP come in and fund 100% of the increase. So we were definitely told that was not it was a conversation that we could have, so we weren't turned away. So I'm hopeful that if we get to that point, that we can have some further discussions on that. But obviously there's nothing really to discuss because we don't need additional funds at this point. But when that comes up, we've already broached that subject with them, and we would plan that to be our first line step in terms of solving that issue, as opposed to just automatically coming to the HCOG board to ask for more RIP funding at the cost share agreement, which I believe was 85% ITIP, 15% RIP. So anyway, I think that was my update. I know the department's really excited to get this project delivered and put it out to bid again, and hopefully get construction kicked off the very tail end of this year, early part of next year. I think it's an improvement that the community's been waiting for many years, and much needed critical safety improvement there in the corridor. So we're excited that we're getting to that point to kind of reach the next step for the project. And we obviously thank HCOG for all of your support in getting to this point.
Well, thank you.
That's all I have.
Well, thank you. I'd be surprised with the cost of oil, barrel of oil nowadays, that fuel and asphalt itself is going to go up. So you're probably right as far as the timing goes. Anybody have a question or comment for Jeff? Yes, Gordon.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. Jeff, being a retired Caltrans type engineer, why I'm always curious as to the redesign of the problematic areas that were subject to the bid protests. In my understanding, that was the fill foundation at the Indianola Bridge. Can you tell us what Caltrans design is for that area now?
Yeah, so the design and the method and what we're planning has not changed. So from the beginning, what we were planning for the soft soils for the embankments approaching the bridges what's called a column-supported embankment. It's essentially, our conventional way of building an embankment is, it's a lot more complicated than this, but for lack of better description, essentially just piling soil and lifts and till you reach the point where you've matched the elevation of the structure, and then you pave on that, and you've got this nice smooth surface to drive on. Unfortunately, in this location, our soils, as everyone's aware, are extremely soft, susceptible to significant settlement, and so the column support and embankment construction method that we'll be utilizing for these fills will essentially be supporting the embankments on piles, similar to how we support our bridge foundations. So that is going to give that embankment a lot more strength. It'll allow us to not have to wait for consolidation. I think previously when we first started down this road, and I know I came to the HCOG board to explain this, we were previously going to be at a 6-year construction job, mainly due to the significant amount of time that we would need to wait for the soils to finish consolidating before we could go and put more soil on them. So this method will allow us to avoid those settlement periods. But anyway, that's always been the plan all along since we shifted to having to deal with these soft soils. The difference in the first go round when we first put it out to bid was that element of the work was placed in the contract as what we call the design bid element. So we were going to be asking the contractor to go ahead and design, furnish the design. We had provided performance specifications in terms of settlement. It was clear on the type of methodology for the construction they needed to use. They were simply going to be specifying depth of piles, diameter of piles, how many, things of that nature. And this type of work is traditionally actually done across the nation on a design build, with a design build approach where the contractor actually does furnish the design. So now what we've done is we've gone out and we did that supplementary geotechnical investigation, did more drilling that the contractor was going to have to do. And then we actually worked with Kleinfelder, the consultant, to do the actual design of those piles and of that system that'll be under the embankment. So, we'll be dictating the depth of the piles, the diameter, the grid spacing of them, and, so on and so forth. There's a lot more details that go into it than that. So, essentially all the contractors are going to be bidding on the same thing. There's not going to be anything that they have to design. So same design, same plan. We're just furnishing the design as opposed to asking the contractor to do it.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
That was perfect.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, well, seeing none, thank you, Jeff, for that report. And we appreciate the info, and so do our constituents. So thank you. And at this time,
and I'm sure I'll be coming back to future meetings to keep you guys updated as developments occur.
no doubt, no doubt.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a good evening.
Okay, with that, we come to public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have any public comment out there?
There's nothing online, Chair Johnson.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll close public comment and move down to action items. Number one, 7A being the North Coast Railroad Authority trail letter.
Thank you. So this item is a request to have the HCOG board send a letter to the Surface Transportation Board in support regarding the North Coast Railroad Authority abandonment exception. And so this letter is really probably similar to what has been sent in several of your jurisdictions. Senator McGuire kind of sent out this sample letter. In some ways, I felt like we were a little late to the party with this meeting because we got a ruling just last week that they were not going to entertain the motion that would have stunted the Great Redwood Trail. However, we have some other information that tells us that was a staff level decision and there's a chance for appeal. So we are still recommending that the HCOG board send this letter of support, and that way we will be on record if there is any further action and this isn't the end of it. So that's the basics. I know last time Mayor Jones had asked a question specific to the Annie and Mary portion, and there was a decision made about that as well. And so at this point, it appears that there's, that railway had previously been abandoned, and that there are fee-owned parcels and some easements that they would need to renegotiate or find other alternatives for. And that is actually in doesn't seem to be a surprise for those who have been working on that, and they were awaiting a response on that. So this letter does not speak to anything regarding that Annie and Mary route.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions or discussion?
Just a couple of things. One is having a meeting tomorrow with relationship to Annie and Mary with Jason Lyles. Do you want information on that after we're done? And okay, it's with your staff at the city and with
Our manager will be there then.
Yeah, and Annie and Mary folks as well, but I'll send you a notice on that. I also want to note that it's not just the coal train challenge. There's a challenge from the skunk train as well as HTA and Uri Driscoll, all of which have been pushed back on. I think we should also be pushing back on those two, as they have similar illegitimacies in terms of their ability to actually deliver, because these are notices of intent to fund, and that doesn't exist, and so we shouldn't even entertain that. So I just want to make sure that we're on the record with relationship to those as well. So with that, I'm willing to make a motion to send the letter.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Get a roll call.
Supervisor Wilson,
Affirmative.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Seaman,
Yes.
Councilmember Avis,
Leave nothing to chance. Yes.
Mayor Atkins Salazar,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Pack Member Arroyo,
Yes.
Pack Member Allstrand.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you for that. And we'll get that sent out. I started calling it the zombie because every time you think it comes back.
That's bad.
And now we have an informational item regarding the Regional Climate Action Plan and HCOG.
Great, thank you. So I know that the Regional Climate Action Plan, the county, Michael Richardson is here. They've been making their rounds to each of your jurisdictions and presenting the plan. But I did want to take an opportunity to kind of cast the HCOG light on the Regional Climate Action Plan, because we play a central role in the plan in terms of the transportation related initiatives. So I did want to call that to your attention and, make sure that you're aware that once this plan is adopted, especially the way it's written now, that we will be participating in advancing the initiatives. And I will say that I think that it matches quite nicely with the Regional Transportation Plan, our VROOM document that was just adopted. It's very compatible with the safe and sustainable transportation targets specifically. Really, the overarching goals are similar, really focused on mode shift. Some of the focus on land use is very similar to what we put in our safe and sustainable targets. I think, occasionally we see differences in sort of the way it's quantified. We might say 80% of new building permits in a certain type of area that's infill, and the draft climate action plan will call out a specific number of new building permits in similar type of infill situations. So little discrepancies like that, but overwhelmingly matching up. And we can consider in future drafts of our regional transportation plan making them all match up quite exactly. That may be beneficial for future grant funding opportunities to really show that everything, all our regional documents are in sync. But that's not for a decision tonight, but just kind of out on the horizon as we do update our plans every 4 So it'll take the climate action plan a bit to get through, and we could consider the value of really syncing that up next time because the climate action plan will have been adopted by that point. And so the other things I wanted to point out is that we are providing funding through the REAP program. So this is a grant that, if you'll development, it has to be used towards housing programs. We had our REAP funds paying, I think it's $375,000 of our REAP funds going to environmental review of the climate action plan, and that includes a vehicle miles traveled analysis and coming up with thresholds for the region. And the reason that relates to housing is because once the climate actions plan is adopted, any activity any permit that's sought that's in compliance with that, they wouldn't have to go through a separate vehicle miles traveled analysis, which can be costly and add time to housing proposals. So that was kind of the nexus we put there, that, by getting this climate action plan adopted and providing for the environmental review, that it'll expedite housing reviews as those projects come forward. We do have a timeline on our REAP funds essentially expiring unless September of 2023. So it is, I think, in the best interest of our, certainly being able to funds in a timely fashion to, do all we can to help the county get underway with the environmental documents. Michael Richardson's here, so I wanted to have him come up and just share any extra thoughts he has. And then also, you may have heard kind of timeline help with that as well, kind of explain the process from here.
Thank you, Beth and board members. Michael Richardson with the Humboldt County Planning and Building Department. We're excited to turn the corner and move from drafting a plan to actually drafting an EIR, an environmental impact report, to evaluate the plan. That action kind of came we completed our review with all of the cities last week. And so that's when the pivot began. And it'll begin with us sending out a RFP, request for proposals, for both the vehicle miles traveled and the drafting of the environmental document. The funding that you guys have nailed down for this work allows for kind of a seamless transition between staff and consultants to complete the work. And so we're going to see what we get in terms of the response to the RFP from consultants, and we're prepared to backfill any holes that exist through our own staff. And so that'll be that RFP will hit the streets early next week, and we'll also begin consultation with the tribes per state requirements. And shortly after that, we will send out a notice of preparation and start drafting the document at that point. And you talked about coordination with the regional plans. That's a concern that's been expressed by a number of jurisdictions, including our Board of Supervisors. That was specific. We got specific direction from our board to make sure that the climate action plan lined up with all of the other regional plans that are out there in terms of their growth projections and their commitments, their implementation measures, and so we will be doing that work, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for Michael? I'm not seeing none, but thank you for coming in, and thank you for coming to our individual jurisdictions and presenting, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm happy to. That was a lot of fun.
I'll bet. Okay. At this time, we will reconvene by motion as the HCOG board and approve the PAC recommendations.
So moved.
Second. Oh, we'll give it good to Mayor Jones.
We have a
Thank you.
motion and a second. Can we get a roll call?
Supervisor Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Seaman,
Yes.
Councilmember Avis,
Aye.
Mayor Atkins Salazar,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
Chair Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And we come now to HCOG staff and PAC member reports, our first being our executive director's report.
Thank you. Just a couple quick updates. And I hope I'm not stealing PAC member Arroyo's thunder, but there are free, it's Dump the Pump Day tomorrow, so there's free transit rides tomorrow. And also that it's most likely that our July board meeting will be canceled. I don't know if that devastates you, but we haven't come across any, pending urgent action items. And I think traditionally our July being last year when I was here, that has not happened. So just a heads up on that, and we will, but possibly canceled on that. And then finally, with the Mayor Jones had asked about the status of the EPD reports with the on the supplemental patrol, and so I did confirm, and my suspicion was correct that they still have not had staffing capacity. That's why they're not providing us any reports, because they haven't done them in several months. They are hoping to be able to resume them. The way our contract works is that we had, I think it was a little over $100,000 remaining in the existing contract, and we extended that. And so they have that to work off of, I think, for another 2 years. And so as they're able to use, and we'll look into extending it if need be. But if you'll remember, the reason we were going to stop the contract after that time is because the corridor would hopefully be under construction, and there'd be supplemental patrols during the construction period. And then after it was constructed, hopefully we wouldn't need supplemental patrols, because the whole intent of the project. So that's all I have on that, and that concludes my report. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for? No. Okay. Our Caltrans report with PAC member Allstrand.
I don't have any reports tonight, but if there are any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them or follow up.
I do have a question. Oh.
Mayor Jones.
Yeah, thanks. I see some movement going on in the Slough Bridge project on 101 just south of Arcata, and I was wondering what the projection was as to when that will be completed.
Oh, I wish Jeff was still here. I will follow up with him and get back to you.
I thought about asking him, but I thought you would be the one to know.
Sorry about that.
Councilman.
And I know that there's been interest in the 101-299 interchange, and just to let you know that it's still in design and moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. My memory serves me anywhere near correct, 6 months, 8 months ago, we were told that Last Chance Grade would be open to two-way traffic in February of this year. What is the status up there?
I do recall having just recently attended the Del Norte Local Transportation Commission meeting, that it is about to reopen, but I don't recall the specifics about the details of those dates. So I'll have to look into that. I'm sorry that I don't have that off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you for that. And that brings us to PAC member Arroyo.
It looks like she might not be in the meeting.
Okay. I think someone's looking at that right now too. Okay, well, we'll just, if there's no further questions or comments, we will thank everyone for your participation and we will adjourn. Thank you.